I was sitting in Dr. Patel's office, my hands folded neatly on my lap like a schoolgirl waiting for her turn to speak. The smell of antiseptic was sharp in the air, and the clock behind him ticked a little too loud. I had come in for a simple blood pressure check. Nothing dramatic, at least. That's what I thought. He looked at my chart longer than usual, his eyes tracing the page but not really reading. Then he looked up, and for a split second, I saw something I hadn't seen in a doctor's face since my husband passed: fear. When he stood, I thought he was reaching for another prescription pad. Instead, he slipped a folded note across the desk, right under my palm. "Please read this outside," he whispered, his voice trembling just enough for me to notice. I tucked the paper into my purse, nodded politely, and left the room as if everything were fine. The air outside was cold and heavy. In the parking lot, I unfolded the note with shaking fingers. "Don't go home. Run." I stood there for a moment, staring at those 4 words as if they might rearrange themselves into something less terrifying. My throat tightened. I could almost hear my late husband's voice in the back of my mind. "Trust your gut. June. Always." So I did. I turned the key in the ignition, and for the first time in my 71 years, I drove away from home without looking back. I drove for almost an hour before I realized my hands were numb from gripping the steering wheel. The highway stretched like a gray ribbon under the overcast sky, and the note on the passenger seat felt heavier than it should. "Don't go home. Run." Those words kept repeating in my head like a slow echo. I didn't run exactly. I stopped at Riverbank Midwest, the same branch where I'd kept my savings since Thomas passed. The teller, Marlene, smiled the way small-town tellers always do, warm but curious. I withdrew $600, just enough to not raise questions. When she asked if I needed help with online access, I shook my head. "No, dear, just a little cash." She handed me the bills, and I slipped them into my purse, pretending everything was fine. From there, I found a small roadside motel near Cedar Ridge. The neon sign flickered between vacancy and no, like it couldn't make up its mind. The woman at the front desk, Casey, looked barely 20. I gave her my ID and said I'd only stay a night or 2. She slid a keycard across the counter, along with a flimsy paper receipt stamped with the time, 4:37 p.m. It felt oddly comforting to have a timestamp, proof that I was somewhere other than home. In the room, I finally let myself breathe. The silence was thick, but not empty. I unfolded the note again, reading every stroke of Dr. Patel's hurried handwriting. What could he have seen? My last checkup was normal. I wasn't sick, at least not that I knew of. I tried to convince myself it was some kind of misunderstanding, that maybe he meant the message for another patient. But in my gut, something twisted. The next morning, I drove back to town. My house sat at the end of Maple Drive, a quiet street lined with elm trees shedding their last yellow leaves. I parked across from the neighbor's yard. From the outside, everything looked the same: white shutters, porch swing, flower boxes Thomas built years ago. But when I saw Derek's car in the driveway that early, my stomach tightened. I slipped around to the side yard, careful not to crunch the fallen leaves. Through the kitchen window, I saw Lila sitting at the table, tapping on her phone. Derek was pacing, his voice low but sharp. I couldn't hear the whole thing until he raised it just enough for the wind to carry the words to me. "She's getting worse," he said. "The doctor will sign off soon. Once we get that power of attorney, we can list the house." Lila nodded without looking up. "I already talked to North Shore Realty. They'll handle the paperwork. Just make sure she takes her meds. The sooner, the better." My chest burned. I pressed a hand against the window frame to keep steady. Power of attorney? List the house? My own son? A noise behind me made me jump. Mrs. Odell from next door was dragging her garbage bin down the driveway. She waved like nothing was wrong. "Morning, June, you're up early." I forced a smile and waved back. "Just picking something up," I said, my voice almost steady. When she turned away, I stepped back toward the porch. The mail slot glinted in the sunlight. Several envelopes lay just inside. I slid one out carefully. It was from my bank, opened and taped shut again. Inside. The letter said a new checking account had been linked to my name. I didn't remember opening any new account. My throat went dry. I took a quick picture of the envelope with my phone, then snapped another of the prescription bottles on the counter through the window. The labels didn't match the dosage I'd been taking. Someone had switched them. I backed away, heart pounding, slipping into my car before anyone saw me. As I drove off, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the rearview mirror, eyes wide, hands trembling. For the first time in my life, I was afraid of my own family. That night, at the motel, I stared at the ceiling fan spinning above me and whispered to no one. Dr. Patel was right. Tomorrow, I told myself, I'd find out what they were planning, and I wouldn't face it alone. The next morning, the fear had hardened into something else. Resolve. I hadn't slept much. The thin walls of the motel buzzed with passing trucks, and every sound made me flinch. But when the sun came through the blinds, I knew hiding wouldn't save me. If Derek and Lila wanted control, they'd have to fight for it. I called a lawyer from my phone's old contacts list, Avery Cole, a woman who'd helped Thomas and me draft our will years ago. Her voice hadn't changed, calm, clipped, and alert. When I told her I suspected my son was trying to take over my assets, she didn't sound shocked. "Come in this afternoon," she said. "And June, bring any mail or paperwork you think looks off." Her office sat above the post office downtown. The waiting room smelled faintly of lemon polish and printer ink. Avery met me at the door herself, her short gray hair perfectly neat. She listened without interrupting while I laid out the note, the bank letter, the medicine bottles I'd photographed. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled. "You did the right thing leaving," she said. "If what you're describing is true, it's financial exploitation, and we'll treat it like that. First, we freeze everything in your name until we verify each account. Then, we revoke any power of attorney or guardianship they've tried to file." I nodded, gripping the strap of my purse. "Will they know?" "Not right away," she said. "But they'll feel it soon." Avery drafted a temporary injunction that would stop any transfer of my property or funds until the court reviewed it. She made me sign 2 copies, slid one into a blue folder, and handed me a receipt. I kept it folded tight in my wallet like armor. Before I left, she made a call to a private investigator she trusted. "Ramon Silva," she said, "former county detective. Knows the system inside out." She put him on speaker, and a gravelly voice filled the room. "I can start today," he said. "Give me the address, the family names, and I'll run basic checks, credit pulls, property listings, social media, anything public that smells off." His matter-of-fact tone steadied me more than anything. Within an hour, I met him at a diner near the courthouse. He was in his 50s, heavy-set, wearing a windbreaker that had seen better days. Overburnt coffee. He asked for details while jotting in a spiral notebook. "They'd need your signature for any legal sale," he said. "If they don't have it, they'll fake it. We'll catch them the moment they try." I gave him permission to access the doorbell camera footage from my house and the neighboring property. He promised to keep me updated daily. That evening, I went to Riverbank again, different branch, different teller. I asked for a fraud alert on all my accounts and requested to rent a safe deposit box. Inside, I placed Thomas's death certificate, our old property deed, and the copy of Avery's injunction. As I locked it, a strange calm settled in. For the first time in days, I felt like I was doing something that mattered. Back at the motel, rain began to fall, the kind that hummed gently on the window pane. I opened Thomas's journal, the one I'd kept packed away since his funeral. On the first page, he'd written, "Trust logic when emotions drown you." I whispered it like a prayer. My phone buzzed close to midnight. It was a text from Avery. "Ramon found something. There's a home appraisal order for your address, scheduled tomorrow morning. North Shore Realty listed Lila as family contact." My heart stopped for a beat. They were already trying to value the house. I called Avery immediately. "What do I do?" "Stay put tonight," she said. "We'll be ready in the morning. Bring your injunction. We'll meet them head on." After the call, I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the rain grow heavier. Fear crept back in, but it didn't paralyze me this time. It sharpened my focus. If they wanted to steal my life, they'd have to look me in the eyes while they did it. The next morning came cold and bright, the kind of Wisconsin morning where the air feels thin and metallic. I wrapped my scarf tighter as I stepped out of the motel and tried not to think about what I might find that day. My phone buzzed just as I reached the car. It was a message from Ruby. "Can we talk? Just you and me? Please." My heart squeezed. I told her to meet me at Harbor Diner by the river. It was neutral ground, public, safe, and quiet. The diner smelled like maple syrup and old coffee, the kind of scent that settles deep into the vinyl booths. Ruby was already there, sitting by the window, her hair pulled into a messy bun, eyes rimmed red. She looked older than 17. When she saw me, her face crumpled. I didn't know what to do. She whispered as I slid into the booth. "Mom told me not to talk to you. She said you were confused. But you're not, are you?" "No, sweetheart," I said softly. "I'm not." A waitress named Kendall came by, setting down 2 menus and filling our cups with coffee. I ordered an omelet. Ruby asked for French toast. She fidgeted with her fork, eyes darting around. "They've been planning this for weeks," she said. "Dad found some guy online who said he could make documents look official. Mom's already talking to a real estate agent. And..." She swallowed hard. "They switched your pills. I saw Mom do it. She said it would help you seem unfit faster." For a moment, the noise of the diner faded, the clink of dishes, the hum of the ceiling fan, everything. All I could hear was the pulse in my ears. "Ruby," I said quietly, "why are you telling me this now?" "Because they're selling the house," she said. "Today. The appraiser's coming at 10. The words dropped like a stone into my chest. I left a 20 on the table for breakfast we barely touched and grabbed my coat. Ruby followed me out into the cold wind. "I don't want to lose you too," she said, her voice breaking. "You won't," I told her. "But you have to let me handle this my way." By 10:30, I was standing in the lobby of North Shore Realty. The receptionist, a woman with glossy hair and a polite smile, looked up when I walked in. "Good morning, ma'am. Do you have an appointment?" "I do now," I said, handing her a copy of the injunction Avery had prepared. "My name is June Callahan." Behind her, through the glass partition, I could see Lila talking to a man in a suit. Derek stood by the window, tapping on his phone. The sight of him there, so comfortable, so entitled, made my stomach turn. When I stepped into the office, both of them froze. "Mom?" Derek's voice was sharp with surprise. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see what you've done," I said, setting the papers on the desk, "and to stop it." The man in the suit looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, but this appointment was to assess the property for listing." "That property," I interrupted, is not for sale. Lila tried to regain control, her smile tight. June, please, this isn't what you think. We just wanted to what? Declare me incompetent? Sell the house under my name? The room went quiet. Even Derek didn't speak. From my purse, I pulled out the printed email Ramon had found, the one with my forged signature attached. I laid it beside the injunction. I believe this belongs to you, I said. The agent stepped back, his jaw tight. I think I'll need to make a few calls, he murmured, leaving the room. Lila's mask cracked first. You can't prove anything, she hissed. Oh, I can, I said, and I will. Ruby had slipped in quietly behind me, her eyes wet but steady. She looked at her parents, then at me, and whispered, It's true, Grandma? Everything you think, it's all true? Lila's breath hitched. Derek went pale. For the first time, I wasn't the one who looked weak. I turned to the receptionist still standing in the doorway. Please make sure no documents are signed today. This is now a legal matter. She nodded quickly. When I stepped outside, the air smelled like snow. Ruby reached for my hand, and I let her hold it. We're not done yet, I said quietly. This was just round one. And as we walked toward the car, I felt something shift deep inside me, not fear this time, but the slow burn of purpose. The courthouse in Cedar Falls was smaller than I remembered, a red brick building with tall windows that smelled faintly of polish and rain. I had been there once before, years ago, when Thomas and I signed the papers for our home. I never imagined I'd be back here defending it from my own son. Avery met me on the front steps. Her umbrella dripped rain onto the concrete. You ready? She asked. No, I said honestly. But I'm here. Inside, the courtroom felt colder than outside. Derek and Lila sat across the aisle, their lawyer, Mr. Pike, whispering something to them. Lila's hair was tied too tightly, her hands trembling in her lap. Derek wouldn't look at me. Ruby sat behind me, clutching a tissue, and when I reached back, she squeezed my fingers once, as if to say I'm here too. The judge, a stern woman named Hartman, called the session to order. We're here to determine the validity of a power of attorney and potential financial exploitation, she said, adjusting her glasses. Mrs. Callahan, you may proceed. Avery stood, calm, precise, and sharp as glass. Your Honor, we have substantial evidence that my client's son and daughter-in-law attempted to gain control of her assets through forged documents and medication tampering. She placed the exhibits one by one, the falsified email with metadata tracing back to Lila's computer, the mismatched prescription bottles, the opened bank envelope, the doorbell footage of Derek removing mail from my porch. Then, she called Dr. Samir Patel. He looked nervous but steady as he took the stand. Dr. Patel, why did you write that note to Mrs. Callahan? Avery asked. He cleared his throat. Because I believed she was in immediate danger. She showed normal cognitive function. But her son had been asking about guardianship paperwork. It raised a red flag. So you warned her? Yes, ma'am. It was my duty as a mandated reporter. Mr. Pike tried to object, but Judge Hartman overruled him. The truth had its own gravity. Next came Nora Glenn, the young nurse Ramon had found. She sat with her hands folded tight. Derek asked me to have a doctor sign a mental evaluation form, she said softly. He offered me $3,000. I refused, but I kept the messages. She handed them to Avery. The timestamps were clear. I watched Derek's face crumble a little more with each word. When the judge asked if he wanted to respond, he muttered something about just trying to protect family interests. His voice cracked on the word family. That's when I stood. "Your Honor," I said quietly. Judge Hartman nodded. "Go ahead, Mrs. Callahan." I turned toward Derek. He finally met my eyes. "I raised you to tell the truth," I said. "To work for what you wanted, not steal it. I don't know when I became a burden instead of your mother, but I refuse to be erased from my own life." The room went still. Even the clerk stopped typing. Derek said nothing. He just looked down at his hands. Judge Hartman leaned forward. "I've seen many cases like this," she said, "but rarely one with such clarity. The court finds the alleged power of attorney invalid. All related financial documents are void. Furthermore, the matter of forgery and elder exploitation will be referred to the district attorney for criminal charges." I felt my knees go weak, but Avery's hand steadied me. Ruby let out a quiet sob behind me. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. When the gavel fell, it sounded like thunder. Outside, the rain had stopped. Lila rushed past me, her face pale, while Derek stood frozen near the courthouse steps. For a moment, I thought he might apologize. He didn't. He just turned and walked away, shoulders hunched, a man suddenly smaller than his own shadow. Avery pressed the court papers into my hands. "You did it, June." "No," I said softly. "We did." In the weeks that followed, the district attorney charged Derek and Lila with fraud and attempted exploitation. Lila pled guilty, received probation, and lost her real estate license. Derek went to prison for 12 years. I didn't attend the sentencing. I'd already said everything I needed to. Ruby moved in with me after that. The baby came in spring, a girl she named Hazel. Sometimes, when I rock her to sleep, I think about the day in Dr. Patel's office, how 4 small words changed everything. I still keep that note, folded and yellowed, in the back of Thomas's journal. On quiet nights, I take it out and trace the handwriting with my finger. It reminds me that survival isn't just about running. It's about knowing when to stand still and fight. Outside my window, the elm trees are starting to bloom again. I can almost hear Thomas's voice in the rustle of their leaves. "Trust your gut, June. Always." This time, I did. Sometimes, in the evenings. I drive past the old house on Maple Drive. It's been sold now, repainted pale blue with white trim. There's a new family living there, a young couple with 2 boys who leave their bikes scattered in the yard. I should feel sad, maybe even angry, but I don't. Watching those kids laugh on the same porch where everything once fell apart makes me realize the house wasn't what I lost. What I almost lost was myself. I used to think getting older meant fading out quietly, letting others make the choices for you. That's what Thomas used to worry about most, that I'd let the world get smaller around me. But that's not how it went. I learned that even at 71, you can still fight for your own story. The days are gentler now. Ruby goes to nursing school 2 towns over, and baby Hazel fills the house with a kind of light I hadn't felt in years. I've started a small volunteer group at the library, just 3 of us, helping seniors understand their rights and how to protect their savings. Every time I see someone's shoulders relax when they realize they're not powerless, I think of Dr. Patel's trembling hands sliding that note across the desk. Sometimes I take that note out of Thomas's old journal and hold it in the light. The ink has faded, but the message hasn't. Don't go home. Run. I understand it differently now. It wasn't just a warning, it was an invitation to step out of fear, to start again. When I close my eyes, I can still hear the rain tapping on that motel window, the night everything changed. Back then, I thought I was running away from danger, but really, I was running toward the woman I was always meant to be. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.